I ask that all of you now join me as I acknowledge the profound debt owed to all of us to the man I now present, our speaker, Cooley's founder, the Honorable Thomas E. Brennan.
Everybody should believe in something, and I believe I'll have a drink. President and Dean LeDuc, Board Chairman and member of the inaugural Cooley class, Larry Nolan, Board Member Emeritus and surviving member of the first Board of Directors, Jack Cote, distinguished members of the Board of Directors, learned and beloved members of the faculty, graduates of the Alfred Moore class, mothers, fathers, grandparents, husbands, wives, assorted relatives and friends, and creditors of the graduates. This is a great day for all of us. For you graduates, it's a day of achievement, satisfaction, accomplishment, relief, survival, escape, whatever you call it, you feel good today. And so do I. I want to thank President LeDuc for inviting me to speak here this afternoon. I'm complimented to be called the founder of Cooley Law School, but in truth, Don LeDuc has provided the academic and executive leadership which has earned for Cooley a special place in the hierarchy of American education. He invited me to speak because, as he says, this month the law school celebrates the 40th anniversary of the meeting of the first class on January the 12th, 1973. President LeDuc and the entire faculty and staff of Cooley Law School deserve our special congratulations today on 40 years of faithful service to the legal profession and to the nation. On this day, 40 years ago, Richard Milhouse Nixon was sworn in to begin his second term as the 37th President of the United States. And today, Barack Obama takes the oath of office to begin his second term as the 44th President of the United States. 40 years and 8 presidents is one heck of a long time. I wonder how many of you graduates were walking around back then. I do wonder, would all the graduates whose birthdays are after January the 12th, 1973, would you please stand up? There they are, ladies and gentlemen, the smiling faces of the Facebook generation. Let's give them a hand. You know, standing up here and looking out at this vast auditorium and literally thousands of people, I can't help but remember the night we met with our very first class. It was a cold, wintry Friday evening. Larry Nolan says a cold day in hell that he would go to law school, but he made it. We gathered in a rented upstairs room, 76 nervous, excited students, each of whom had signed an acknowledgement that Cooley was not accredited, and that they knew that we had no accreditation. We had no library, no dean, no full-time faculty, no blackboard, no chalk. We had nothing but hopes and dreams and a determination to make something out of nothing. I told the class that night that someday Cooley would be known for its campus, for its buildings, for its alumni. And that when that day came, I said, It would seem that Cooley Law School always was. I remember browsing in the state archives a few years ago and stumbling across a 3x5 index card about Thomas McIntyre Cooley. It said that Thomas Cooley was a justice of the Michigan Supreme Court who founded a law school in Lansing which bears his name. So much of the pride for being the founder of Cooley Law School. But you didn't come here this afternoon just to hear me talk about the good old days, or to hear me tell you that when I was your age, we thought that a laptop was a place to put your napkin at dinner, or that Googling was what young men did when a pretty girl walked by, or that an iPad must be something prescribed by your ophthalmologist. Well, I suppose when you were young, your grandfather told you that when he was your age, he had to walk 5 miles to school every day, rain or shine, barefoot, in the snow, uphill, both ways. And you probably didn't believe him either. No, sir, you didn't come here today to listen. You came here today to walk. You came to walk up on this stage and receive your diploma. You've earned that piece of paper, and you've come here this afternoon to claim it, to feel it in your hand, to show it to your family and your friends, to take it home and hang it on the wall and show it to the world. So I'm going to talk to you today about that diploma, and I'm going to tell you just 3 things. It's a Doctor of Laws from Cooley. Now, the first point is that your diploma is a doctoral degree. It represents 90 credit hours of postgraduate education. You know, there's a lot of talk these days about the economy. Folks are questioning the value of a college education. Young people are graduating from college and they can't find a job. Some folks are beginning to question whether the cost of higher education is worth it. Graduates are often saddled with huge student loans, and there's a lot of gloom and doom out there. So let's take a moment to try to put things in historical perspective. When I graduated from law school, the University of Detroit, in 1952, I worked as a title examiner at an abstract company. And I stayed there for 2 years after I passed the bar examination. When I finally got a chance to join a law firm, I did. I jumped at the chance. And I took a 27% pay cut to begin the practice of law. My secretary at that law firm was making more money than I was. And so was my wife, who was a substitute teacher in the public schools. After 2 years with the law firm, I went out on my own. I never looked back. So maybe you can see why I tell people there's no such thing as an unemployed lawyer. If you are a member of a learned profession, you have knowledge and skill that has value in the marketplace. You never hear any talk about medical doctors or dentists being unemployed. If you can hang out a shingle, you can find work to do. It's a funny thing. Everybody wants a job. Nobody wants a boss. If you have a profession, you can be your own boss. There are, as you may know, over 311 million people in the United States of America. Less than 0.5% of them are lawyers. That means there are over 250,000 clients for every lawyer. It ought to be some comfort to you as you sit here this afternoon to realize that outside those doors are 250,000 people waiting to give you money to do what you learned how to do in law school. Of course, first, you have to pass the bar examination. I got an email a couple weeks ago from a fellow by the name of Jim who graduated from Cooley 25 years ago. I remember him well. He failed the bar examination, I think, 3 times. When he came back to see me back then, I told him he didn't have to be a licensed attorney in order to be successful. And I suggested that he talk to some of our alumni who were doing very, very well in business. He just smiled at me and he said, "You'll see." And he walked out of my office. Today, he's the chief assistant prosecutor in New Jersey with 8 young lawyers working for him. Bar examinations aren't easy. They're not supposed to be. But your diploma entitles you to sit for the examination. And your education at Cooley has prepared you to pass it. I can assure you that if you really want it, you will have a license to practice law to hang alongside your diploma. Of course, if you just want a job, if you want a boss and a paycheck and a 401k, health care, paid vacations, and maybe a chance to get promoted, I can tell you that the piece of paper you're going to get up here today is your boarding pass on the flight to security and success. Think about it. There's hardly a job description in the business world that you are not qualified, maybe overqualified, to do. Does a bank want a loan officer? Does an insurance company want a claims adjuster? Does a manufacturer want a personnel officer? Who wouldn't choose an applicant with a law degree over somebody with a 4-year education? And who wouldn't choose an applicant from Cooley Law School? Consider this. Your law degree tells more about you than how much you know. It testifies to your work ethic, to your commitment, to your dedication, to your perseverance. It tells an employer that you will show up, that you'll be prepared, that you know how to get a job done, that you know how to meet a challenge with guts and grit and come out a winner. So the first point is that after today, you'll be a doctor of laws. The American Bar Association tells us that medical doctors have their most productive years between their 12th and their 20th years in practice. And lawyers have their best years between their 20th and their 40th years in practice. Of course, there are no guarantees in life. But my guess is that if you work as hard at your profession as you did at your education, you will make a decent living over the next 40 or 50 years. Now, the second point I want to leave you with is this. Your diploma is a doctor of laws. The law is the most interdisciplinary science. It touches on everything people do, on everything that happens in life. When Judge John Fitzgerald, God rest his soul, taught the first class at Cooley, he began by writing a quotation from Chaucer on the blackboard. "The life so short, the craft so long to learn." One thing you surely understand by now is that nobody knows all the law. A lawyer is defined as a person who is learned in the law. To be a person learned in the law is to be a person who studies the law, who reads the law, who contemplates the law, discusses the law, knowing that the journey takes more than a single lifetime. Your diploma says that you are learned in the law. It says that you are a lawyer. And it is a very big, impressive, and credible document. It has the familiar Cooley logo prominently displayed, and that logo features the crown of a pillar and the Latin motto, "In corde hominem est anima legis." 40 years ago, we didn't have a logo. I walked into class one day with a couple of drawings, and I asked the students to vote on which one they would like to be the logo. And they picked out the one with the Ionic column. We bought the Masonic Temple a couple years later. It looked like a law school. It had pillars out in front. Unfortunately, they were Doric rather than Ionic columns, but we never changed the logo. I came up with the Latin motto for the school, "In corde hominem est anima legis." I told the student that it meant the spirit of the law is in the hearts of men. A couple of days later, a committee of the women students came to see me. They called themselves the Cats. It was an acronym for Cooley Action Team Sisters. And the sisters let me know that the spirit of the law is also in the hearts of women. I assured them that the Latin word hominum means mankind in the generic sense and not just the male of the species, and that got me off the hook. In truth, there is no such Latin word as hominum, but I figured since I made up the word, I was entitled to make up the definition. So we settled on the translation, the spirit of the law is in the human heart. And so it is. That motto is more than just a catchy slogan. It's a statement of philosophy. It is an affirmation of the existence of natural law. It testifies that there is such a thing as objective truth. It reminds us that deep within the very heart and soul of every human being there abides the faculty of conscience, which strives to understand the meaning of our lives, to distinguish between good and evil, and to chart a course for the pursuit of true happiness. The spirit of the law is within us. The 10 Commandments that Moses carried down from Mount Sinai are etched in our hearts as surely as they were written on tablets of stone. And the codes of Hammurabi are emblazoned in our instincts as surely as they were on the pillars of Babylon 4,000 years ago. Every religion known to man proceeds from a belief in an intelligent creator. Even the folks who believe we started with a big bang would have to concede that before there was the bang, there was the idea of the bang. If the bang was inevitable, then it wasn't the beginning, because it was preceded by the conditions that led to the bang. And if the bang was not inevitable, then it was the result of a choice or a decision. Human beings are said to be made in the image and likeness of their Creator because we have the two faculties that are always ascribed to the Creator of the universe: intellect and free will. Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness, the never-ending chase, the striving, the searching, the climbing up, the reaching out, the quest for the Holy Grail, the journey to the promised land. California, as you may know, is the only state in the Union that claims to be heaven on earth. It's true, the Constitution of the state of California says that all people have the right to pursue and to obtain happiness. That might explain why so many people move to California and why the Golden State has a budget deficit of about $16 billion. Too many people think that freedom means being able to do whatever you want to do. But the pendulum of human history that swings back and forth between anarchy and dictatorship, as it does today in the Middle East, teaches the hard truth that there can be no true liberty without the rule of law. And the massacre of innocent women and children at the Sandy Hook School in Connecticut reminds us of the terror that lurks when freedom is disconnected from sanity. President Dwight Eisenhower urged Americans to act in their enlightened self-interest. Pope John Paul II wrote that freedom is the right to do what we ought to do. At its core, the science of the law is the accumulation of human knowledge and experience about what people ought to do, how we ought to live. The words of Justice Cooley announced from the side of the Temple building in downtown Lansing, law students must always remember that they are preparing themselves to be ministers of justice. Justice is defined as giving to every man his due. So to be a minister of justice is to be concerned with the oughtness, with the shouldness of things. Common law judges do it all the time. Who ought to win this case? What ought to be the rule of law? What should happen under this factual situation? Right and wrong are not determined by a flip of the coin, but by reason, logic, experience, knowledge, and tradition. You've read a lot of old cases the last 3 years. You've heard a lot of lectures, and spent a lot of time debating with your classmates and your professors. And you know that there's more to law than you can find in Wikipedia. The law, they say, is a jealous mistress. But if you really love the law, I can promise it will be good to you. It certainly has been very good to me. Which brings me to my third and final point. The diploma you will receive today is from the Thomas Cooley Law School. 40 years ago, nobody ever heard of the Thomas Cooley Law School. Today, it is the largest accredited college of law in the United States. Over the years, Cooley has built a reputation that frankly, I'm very proud of. It has always been known as the easiest law school to get into and the hardest law school to graduate from. A couple of weeks ago, I got a nice letter from a fellow who graduated in September of 2000. Now he is the senior attorney for the New York State Department of Education, making about 4 times what he was making as a police officer. His letter said, "By the end of my first year, all of my close friends had flunked out or left school. I used to joke," he says, "that at Cooley it's not look to your left, look to your right, one of you isn't going to be here next year. At Cooley it's look to your right, look to your left, none of you are going to be here next year." Well, of course, it's not quite that bad. But I do remember a dermatologist in Lansing telling me one time, "Brennan, I think you're running a wonderful law school downtown, a very excellent school." I said, "Really? How do you know?" He said, "Well, I have a patient who is a Cooley student, and she gets so nervous at exam time that her hair falls out." Of course, I was never in favor of making our students go bald, but it didn't bother me when students complained about the difficulty of our program. It was, in fact, great public relations. They were making the case in the community that Cooley was tough, demanding, and professional, in spite of our liberal admissions policy. Beginning that very first day, we were determined to make the American dream of opportunity a reality. We very intentionally threw the front door wide open to every qualified college graduate who wanted to go to law school. And from the very first day, we always assured our students that no one would graduate from Cooley who did not measure up to the standards of professional excellence that were exemplified by our namesake, Thomas McIntyre Cooley. You know, Cooley Law School educates more minority lawyers than any other law school in America. And we've always done it without the kind of favoritism and discrimination that some schools use to achieve an artificial sense of diversity. How do we do it? The answer is very simple. If you open the front door wide enough, you will get a cross-section of the American people. As you watch these graduates walk across the stage and you hear their names announced, you will see what I mean. These graduates are what America is all about. They are exceptional men and women who have worked and risked and sacrificed to earn their diplomas. They will join a virtual army of nearly 20,000 lawyers living and working from Poland to American Samoa, men and women who are proud of their Cooley diplomas, proud of their superior professional education and practical training, and proud to be associated with like-minded graduates of Thomas Cooley. Just get on your computer and Google Cooley Pride, and you'll see what I'm talking about. 40 years ago, Cooley was a mom-and-pop do-it-yourself storefront operation. My dear wife, Polly, sat behind a card table, answering the phone and processing applications while I was out buying books and hiring law teachers. About 4 in the afternoon, on January the 12th, 1973, Polly decided to admit one more student. So I had to run out and buy another student desk. We began that first session when Lou Smith, the secretary of the board, read the roll call and asked each student to stand up and tell us where he went to undergraduate school and what degrees he had, or she had. When Lou finished, I had a few words to say, and now, as the school celebrates 40 years of legal education, I ask for your indulgence as I read those brief remarks. With unspeakable joy, I welcome you to the Thomas M. Cooley Law School. Others will come after you. There will be many, many other first days and first nights. There will be many other times to remember, to relish, and to enjoy. But none so sweet as now. We are here, all of us, because we believe in ourselves, because we believe in each other, and because we believe, whether we realize it or not, in a spirit that gives purpose and meaning to the things that men do, quite beyond our poor capacity to understand or appreciate. In time, the Thomas M. Cooley Law School will be a great and distinguished institution of higher learning. And in that time, it will seem always to have been. It will seem to have a life of its own, independent of its officers, its faculty, even its student body. It will be seen and known in terms of its real estate, its library, its pension plan, its alumni, its publications, its corporate resources. But the genesis of human achievement does not lie in corporate resources or in tangible physical things. It lies in the unique and God-given capacity of the human spirit to envision what is not, but what can be, to embrace what is unfulfilled and cause it to happen, to make an act of faith and turn unreality into reality. It is given to all of us here tonight, as it is given to few men and women, to taste and feel and know the power of the human purpose. And we shall remember. But we shall remember too, despite our pride and satisfaction this night, that a long and difficult road lies before us. As we go down that road, let us ask or permit no excuses of each other. You have a right to expect that Thomas M. Cooley Law School will embody all of the excellence in legal education that the great judge, scholar, and teacher Thomas McIntyre Cooley represents in the history and tradition of Michigan and American jurisprudence. And we will expect no less of you than total absorption in the study of the law, total dedication to this institution, and a fierce, unyielding pride in what you are doing for yourselves and your future, and what all of us together are doing for those who will come after us. It was, as I must say now as I look back, a rather prophetic night. What I didn't realize or expect that night was that 3 years later, that Cooley class would have a better passing rate on the bar examination than the graduates of the University of Michigan. One of the chores I took on in those early days was to compose a song, the Cooley Alma Mater. It's printed on your programs, and later you'll hear a recording of it by the Michigan State University chorale. I don't have any musical talent or experience. I had to number the keys on the piano with the magic marker in order to plunk out a tune. But if you're going to compete with the University of Michigan, you got to have a song. Cooley has no football team, no marching band, no cheerleaders, but it does have a spirit that reflects the bonds of affection and dedication that have tied your class together over the last 3 years. And I like to think that the words of the song I wrote somehow reflect the way most of the members of the Alfred Moore class feel today. For Thomas Cooley, their alma mater, mighty temple of the law, where first we touched the face of justice, full of wonder, full of awe. Thomas Cooley, alma mater, reservoir of truth sublime, where first we tasted sweetest reason, learning wisdom grows with time. We came to you in Michaelmas, different as the autumn trees, and working grew in friendships through snowbound Hillaries. We'll say farewell to Trinities, treasuring the memories of Thomas Cooley, alma mater. As we wear your white and blue, we proudly sing your highest praises. Thomas Cooley, hail to you.